2018, it has become an almost entirely unquestioned mantra in the governments, media, schools, and institutions of higher learning of the Western world that diversity is our strength. We hear it repeated constantly on the TV, on the internet, in movies, books, and magazines. It is everywhere we look. Check the mission statement of any major corporation, any university, or even any rural high school, and it will no doubt include an affirmation of its loyalty to the concept of diversity. This affirmation will not simply be one amongst many, it will be the primary. Things like profit, or excellence, or honesty, or other vital virtues often don't even get a single mention. It seems like in our modern world, diversity as a virtue, as a value, is mentioned, praised, and affirmed more than any other, and moreover, this is taken as entirely unremarkable. There is no commentary in the public discourse over how we reached this point, how this value became the most praised and emphasized value in our entire society, as if it has always been as central to our collective values as it is today. When one thinks about it, this is actually really rather odd, as if a great giant alien spaceship crash-landed in the center of a major city, and then everyone totally failed to comment on it, and acted as if it had always been there and was therefore entirely unremarkable. Almost no other virtues receive the institutional public affirmation that diversity does. We don't hear constant repetition of pieties about far more important virtues. For example, looking at a specific instance, truth has traditionally been the central value of the Western university, a foundation of how we have achieved scientific progress in the West over the last 1,000 years. And yet truth receives almost zero reference in the self-description of the same modern university that repeats constantly and endlessly how much it values diversity. The establishment has tried to act as if diversity is an eternal value alongside things like truth, beauty, courage, and wisdom. They never talk about the point at which we supposedly collectively agreed on this, because of course such a point never existed. The elite simply decided this was now a fundamental value of Western civilization, and the people were simply never given a say. There was no public debate whatsoever. This fact, this lack of debate, is almost never spoken about either. The other universal values are, well, universal. Almost all people love and prize them. Conversely, diversity, without public brainwashing, only really appeals to a small proportion of the population that is naturally on the far left. To normal people, it has very little natural appeal. This is profoundly different to the way that other universal values are treated in society, and it shows how markedly distinct that diversity is to those other values. Truly universal values are different in two ways aside from their lack of appeal to people on the left of the political spectrum. Firstly, universal values do not require constant propagandizing, whereas diversity does. This suggests that diversity is an entirely artificial value. Without constant state reinforcement and intimidation of dissenters, diversity would obviously not be a value that was prized in our society. Naturally appealing values simply don't need reinforcement. If society were never to praise beauty again, if it were to in fact actively attack it for 1,000 years, to try to make it the most hateful thing imaginable, it would still not be able to convince a single person not to prefer it to ugliness. So the question is, why it's pushed so consistently? The answer to this is of course more obvious, and gets into the aspects of the diversity question that are more commonly publicly debated. It helps to facilitate mass immigration and ethnic change. If diversity is good, then things that make our society more diverse are prima facie good also. Without propagandizing, diversity would be seen as what it really is, a negative. People would see that societies function far more harmoniously and far more effectively and are far more cohesive when they are homogeneous rather than when they are diverse. So therefore, if we want to undermine the diversity mantra, one of the most important things we can do is not simply to attack the motivations of those who push diversity as a moral good, but also to simply draw attention to its artificiality. If it is so self-evidently good, then it should not need to be constantly reiterated. We are not constantly told by every instrument of social control in our society that beauty is our strength or wisdom is our strength. If diversity is truly a universally good value, then we don't need to hear it lauded. People will see it as a good in and of itself. Of course, leftists know just as well as we do that without constant reiteration, people would quickly return to a natural attitude towards it and reject it, and realize that we would all be happier in a more homogeneous society. Diversity itself is a purely ideological construct, created for one purpose and one purpose alone: to convince people that their ongoing ethnic replacement in their own countries by third world immigrants is a good thing. It should be exposed for what it is, for its artificiality, and for the objective that is pointed towards achieving.